What's going on, everybody? This is the Card Guys. Willie B here with the best of them: Nathan Crawford, Joshua Lau, Sebastiano Cavallo, and wouldn't you know it, a new face, a friendly face, maybe one you've seen before, but one we're excited to show off as our
It's
newest team
old him,
member,
grandfather of eternity.
Edward Knight.
Yeah, he's right there. Woo, woo. Glad to be
But
here.
now
Edward.
this Ed is the newest member of the team. We're excited to have him, but even more excited than that, well, equally excited than that, we're ready to talk about the upcoming Worlds tournament in Barcelona, Spain. We want to give our opinions. We want to ask your opinions, and honestly, we're here just we're excited about it. This video is brought to you by FABREC, Dragon Shield, and these handsome faces right here. Joshua Lau, why don't you
Yep.
bring us right in?
All right, guys, this is the big one. This is the tier list to end all tier lists, I guess. We have made lots of tier lists. We've made lots of charts over the last, frankly, years now. But we're going to keep it simple today. We are going back to the OG tier list with a couple... We thought, a traditional tier list, S to D, is not quite representative because there's a little bit of unknown and a little bit of kind of hush-hush among a lot of the testing teams. We're not really going to hold anything back here because we are competitive players, but we're also content creators, and we like giving you guys what you like to hear. So that is what we're doing today. We got 5 categories here. Up at the top, we got the super sweaty tryhard tier. If you want to win worlds, if you want the best chance, if you want, above 50%, that's what you're playing, right? Next, we have the optimal tier. This is the tier where it's not the best, but it could probably get there. If this shows up in the top 8, no one would be super surprised. Piloted by a excellent specialist or somebody that has a lot of reps on the deck, any deck from optimal or up could do well at worlds, right? Then we have the not optimal tier. So this is the tier where you're kind of handicapping yourself a little bit, or you have a really, really weak matchup into something in the super sweaty tryhard tier. There's a little bit of a differentiation here. So decks that are in the super sweaty tryhard tier may not actually be represented, like highly represented, right? The easiest example of this is Icelander. Probably very high tier, but not played by a lot of people, right? So we're going to take into we're going to run through like what we think the meta percentages will be, and that will kind of affect whether something is an optimal or not optimal, because matchup spread is very, very, very important, right? Then we have the dark horse tier. This is decks that we are a little unsure about, or decks that we've heard murmurs about, and we just want people to be aware that they are there. Dash IO would have been here a week ago, but the cat's out of the bag. Dash IO, pretty good. And then finally, we have you bought a PTI to troll people round 1. So if you're the type of guy that just wants to, get the playmat, get the say that you were in worlds and all that, and you want to, troll around, you bring a hero in that tier.
Mm-hmm.
This is basically the equivalent of D tier. Okay, so we basically have S, A, B. Dark Horse is not really C. It's kind of unknown. And then you bought a PTI is basically D. Okay. So that's what we're doing today. We're going over all 21 heroes that are available in Classic Constructed. What we normally like to do is we like to put a few heroes into the, kind of S, B, and then D. So we have like some anchors or some pillars, right? So let's do that. When I say super sweaty tryhard worlds deck list, what pops out to you guys?
Oh my.
Yeah,
Dromai.
first one right there.
All right. I think I think came to everybody's mind. So let's talk about why Dromai is part of the Super Sweaty Tryhard tier. Nathan, you've been playing some Dromai recently, so why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Droma is positioned well right now, mainly due to the fact of course, the new card, Tome of the Imperial Flame. It's kind of allowed her ability to remove some of the lesser cards, right? Like the blue, a lot of the blues that you had to support for bigger dragons and stuff like that. You can kind of remove that. Also, Tome gives you the ability to generate ash on the fly, where you don't have to run inefficient cards like Sweeping Blow, things like that. And also, it allows you to amass board states in one go, right? So if you're against a deck that runs a lot of poppers, it's no longer play 2 dragons out at a time. It's play Tome and get out 3 or 4. And that is a very unique ability that kind of allows her to kind of push the boundaries where she was previously kind of tied up against ninjas, maybe even Rhinar. Rhinar is definitely still a bad matchup, but not as bad as it used to be. And same thing for a lot of the ninjas, for sure.
But let's like cut her blue count a little bit too, which means that you're playing less like dead cards.
Mhm.
So you get to play a little bit more. You can play like your Nekrias. I wouldn't be surprised to see a bunch of Nekrias floating around in a new one. So
That basically ups the Tumultai hit rate as well, which
yeah,
it's pretty important, especially against the ninjas or anybody that has important pieces of equipment. Dromai basically only has a couple weak matchups. I think Bravo, both the ninjas, and Lexi, which is now gone, are pretty, and Reinhardt, I guess. So decks that have a ton of poppers and decks that can efficiently deal with the board. If you don't have one of those, your win rate against Dromai is fairly low. And against a top tier Dromai pilot, they're going to really be pushing that. So yeah.
yeah.
Any other thoughts on Dromai in S tier?
She's
If
good.
not, we can move on. She's good, and people know she's good. The only
Yeah, I
thing
don't
that
think it's a secret.
the only thing that possibly might be holding her back is that she has the largest target on her back. So
She is also easily
there's a
targetable. Right.
I said in the intro, we're not holding anything back. I know of many people that are practicing Reinhardt. So let me just warn you, if you are bringing Dromai, there are going to be Reinhardts at Worlds. So there's that, okay?
Yep.
Absolutely.
They're definitely the largest target on her back. Okay. So not optimal, also could be classified as regular.
We missed an opportunity.
Yeah, not optimal, could be regular. Okay, so which hero jumps out?
Azuri?
Yeah.
Azuri.
Azuri.
So Azuri actually won the calling in was it Melbourne?
Yeah.
So, but that could just be a flash from the pan, right? And obviously that was in the Lexi meta. So Azuri basically lost her best matchup, and now the meta has changed a bit. Decks. So Azuri traditionally does pretty poorly against Dromai, but does decently against most aggro decks, I would say, because she can disrupt them. You know, she can basically block with 2 or 3 cards and then send something disruptive back with just 2 cards. Thoughts on Azuri?
I think Azuri is a little bit of a feast or famine kind of deck. And when she's got Lexis to feast upon, she's going to do well. But I honestly think in Barcelona or in your smaller battle-hardened style tournaments around town, Azuri is going to be struggling a bit right now. I really do. Because she does do well into the aggro matchups, but I think if the aggro player plays correctly, it's not that good of a matchup for Azuri without her being able to rely on just all the disruption she had available into decks like Lexi.
Also, her disruptions like easily stopped by Icelander. She loves 2-card hands, and Icelander can easily just mess those up.
Yep.
Yeah, I was about to
And
ask
she doesn't
that.
have too many, not enough blues either to support like any kind of like blocking Icelander
Yeah.
out or anything like that. So,
Mhm.
and then
if we
you know,
end-
obviously the sixth thing too against Bravo is not well either because you're only coming in like isolate is your best move, but then they can usually just save a D react for that.
Right.
Speaking of D reacts, I think this is actually a format where, because Azalea and Bravo are probably in the super sweaty tryhard tier, if not the top of optimal, this is a format where running more D reacts doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
You know, you can also by chance catch an Azuri or Dorinthea as well, right? So Sync, Fate, Reinforce, Unmovable, your Class D React, Oasis. There's a lot of defensive tools that are probably going to be more prevalent in the meta, and that does hurt Azuri.
Yeah.
Okay. If you sat, let's frame this in a different way. Okay, Nathan and Will, you sit down round 1 at Worlds, and you play against this hero. You're going to be angry because you didn't prep.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what's hilarious? Tekla Boston was going to be my choice.
Teklo Daddy.
All right.
Yeah.
Tell
Tekla
me
Daddy.
about Teklo Daddy.
He just doesn't do anything above rate.
And the versions of him closing out games that I've seen are like his big dumb overpower attack followed by a big dumb overpower attack into him attacking with the mech suit, essentially. It's like,
Just
if
too
I
slow.
lose to that, what have I done?
That's so overrated. I don't know what you mean, Nathan.
Yeah,
That
one
is like the
card
most
9?
overrated.
Or sorry, 2
How-
card 9?
2 card
How did
9.
How did I let
Also
that happen?
discard. Oh my god.
Yeah, but how much interest did you pay to get to that point?
30
I've already
life,
lost
probably.
interest.
I'm
Oh,
just
that
saying.
being said,
I'm
if
just
somebody
saying.
wins with Teklo Daddy, then like I'm gonna be singing their praises from the rooftops. Like, wow, you did it! You brought the
Yeah.
deck that couldn't have won and won. But I'm not counting on it.
It's pretty cool.
Okay, so
Oh, with like Icelander.
every hero
Sorry,
that we
Josh.
put into this category, I'm going to ask why it's not worthy of Dark Horse.
Hmm.
Because it doesn't target anything.
I can
It also loses to Icelander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can answer that question really well.
Okay, go for it.
It's in the hero ability. If you look at the hero text, there's nothing in Tekla Volston that is truly unexplored, right? Look at his hero text. It says you can pay a blue and draw a card when you play an Evo at an instant speed, and you can play Evos from Banish Zone, right? Well, there's only like so many avenues that you can go down, right? You can either boost the Evo into the Banish Zone, you quote unquote get a free card, or you can scrap it in there. Okay. There's no dash IO where like you need to get your, which items do you run, which ones are better. There's that same problem with the Evos, but the Evos are much less dynamic than items are. And the ability to crank and play it off the top of your deck and stuff like that. So I think because of like the way that the hero is designed, not saying it's bad, it is a very unique, and Evos are cool. I just think that it was, for me at least, it was very easy to look at that hero and understand what it needed to be doing, and it's just not strong right now.
Okay. All right. Let's fill in the super sweaty tryhard tier a little bit more. That way we have a reference for the optimal and non-optimals. So we mentioned Azalea. Let's talk about Azalea. So Lexi Refugees, you have a hero that you could play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it feels like it when you go Rain Razor's Bolton Shot.
Yeah.
That is true.
Not bad.
Okay,
It's not
so Azalea in the previous meta was considered good, but she did lose Brave Forge, or not Brave Forge Racers. Shows where my mind is at. Bullseye Bracers. The Bullseye Bracers is actually really, really important for Azalea because if you're firing some arrows and they're not that disruptive, or and you notice your opponent's not blocking, you can snap dragons, bullseye bracer, load a kind of desperation arrow, like sleep dart or whatever, and just fire it off, try to get some cards from your opponent. It also, combines very well with Depth Dealer, Crow's Nest, all those things.
Super good for Dromai.
This deck is pretty good. It's great against most of the aggro decks as well. So, any thoughts?
Bullseye
on
being
Azalea?
back is good against Bravo too, which is probably her notoriously worst matchup, right? And being able to push an extra arrow on a Rainrazor's turn if you're setting up
go
some
a
pitch
little
stack
bit wider.
thing.
It's very
Exactly.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
especially with the ability, it's like where you got the Bolton shot that's buffed coming at them. You have the Rain Razors in hand lined up. They overblock it. You're just like, oh, okay, yep, bullseyes, load that anyway, and still basically have the effect. And then save the Rain Razors for next turn.
Azalea is well poised in my opinion. She's good into the aggro decks that are going to be coming out to try and take advantage of Dromai. She's pretty good into Icelander, who will be finally able to step back in and not have to worry about Lexi. Certain matchups she should be rightfully scared of, but I think Azalea is very well poised, and she's a very good choice if you're trying to be super sweaty tryhard.
Well, with the recent upsurge of Dash.io as well, she seems to have a pretty matchup in them. So
I think Azalea's only bad matchup is probably Bravo and Azuri. I think the rest of it is just.
Well, Dromai can be tough too, right?
Yeah.
How easy?
Well,
how easy can Dromai tech into Azalea, Nathan?
Well, so that's kind of where the problem lies, right? Like, so if we're gonna go off on a tangent real quick, but it's for a good reason. So, like Dromai, we said at the beginning that it's very easy to tech for. Well, how do you tech for Dromai? You put in more poppers, right? Well, how do you counter that as a Dromai player? You play cards like Blaze Headlong and cards like that where you can lead with damage before you invest your dragon into the combat chain to lead into said popper, right? Well, what's on the bottom right corner of Blaze Headlong? 2, not 3, not 4. So to combat the strategies that Dromai is having to face, you decrease the average block value in your deck to run these more aggressive cards, which does then play into what Azalea is trying to do. Am I saying that Dromais are dropping D-Reacts? Absolutely not. Everybody will be on at least Sinks, probably a set of Fates, maybe even, at minimum 1 or 2 Fates, and then probably a Sand Cover and Oasis for insurance against the Wizards.
So what if Dromai decides that they just want to start playing Warmongers again? Because that card destroys Azalea if you're not careful.
I mean, Azalea's already kind of solved that issue. Levi had the Sigil Tech and the Rabbles and the E-Strikes and, just a lot of different avenues, even CNC. There's a lot of things that now, can it just completely brick her turn? Absolutely. Right. It can just make her, it's basically a time walk in some cases, but you have to have an action point. You're investing a card. It may not pay off, right, for a lot of decks. So, it just depends.
Cool. All right. We mentioned Azalea and Bravo together, so let's talk about Bravo. Ed, would you put Bravo in optimal or super sweaty tryhard?
Well, do you even have to ask where I would put him? That doesn't mean that's where he
All right,
should
where
go.
in super sweaty tryhard does he go? So left is the highest.
I think there's an argument for him being in the optimal tier, but I think super sweaty tryhard is probably okay. I've seen a lot of good players, like, top teams and whatnot, really, really bash Bravo. Could be a psyops, who knows? But I think he's pretty good for this meta. He's good against both of the heroes to his left here, right?
Yep.
Does depending on what your tech is for Dromai, you can have a decently favorable matchup, and against Azalea, I think you're decently favored as well. Even more so than you would be against Dromai.
Yeah, the only top tier deck that I think gives Bravo some issues is Icelander, right?
Yes.
Dash
That Dash and Icelander.
Dash it. Mhm.
and
Yeah.
Reiner.
So,
Original Dash.
so tell me a little bit about why those matchups are traditionally hard.
So Icelander just does this kind of like mid-range game better than you do, especially with their Wounded Bulls and the Finals Fighting Spirit. They're already at less life. They're taking these like chip trades here, and you just can't present enough to be able to, get them to a one card hand where they're not chipping back, right? So you really have to play a good back and forth with them to even like get close to winning that matchup. And if you get to a point where you're single digit life total, you've already lost the game because they have the Stormstriders, and they'll go Emeritus Scolding from Arsenal into Stormstriders, some, like Red Aether Icebane or something along those lines, and a Waning Moon, you're dead, right? So it's tough. Not saying it's unwinnable, obviously. There's a lot of tech with Citadel Solace. Some people might be wanting to play some Oasis or something along those lines, Tunic Tech, whatever, right? But that one's tough, and I expect that there's going to be some very good Icelander players that are going to give him a hard time. Dash, on the other hand, you just have to kill them as quickly as possible. They set up their Exodia pistol plan. It is extremely hard. I've seen some rumblings of like a Dash playing some Evos and whatnot potentially. Almost like a Tree Frog variant, and I honestly believe that matchup is near unwinnable, almost as bad as original Prism was for Bravo.
So cards like Smashing Good Time don't offer enough in that matchup, or is it just you don't run
play
that
that
because there's only one matchup?
Right, like it only has value in that one matchup, and it's a situational card where you have to have it in arsenal to get the pump, right?
Right.
So if you draw a hand that's 3 blues and a Smashing Good Time, that's horrible. You'd rather that red something that actually does something, like crippling, Starstruck, Zealous Belting, whatever, right?
Right. Okay.
So, but everything else is pretty good. I think he has a decent matchup and everything else. Even though you say Reinar is a bad matchup, I think it's closer than you think. It's probably closer to a 50-50, unless they set up a second cycle pitch stack or something along those lines with Blood Rush Bellows or a triple barraging Alpha Rampage turn, or not triple, maybe double. That's all they need to push a bunch of damage.
Yeah.
As long as you play efficient mid range, you should have a pretty close game. Keep your life total above 2 and you'll be okay, right?
Okay. All right. You mentioned Dash. I want to talk about New Dash. Is this a flash in the pan? Is this a deck that could go all the way? Is this overhyped? Is this just hyped enough? Where do we want to put good old Dash? She was there, no longer there anymore.
At the very least,
optimal.
optimal. I think her damage output and aggression is way too good and consistent to say that it's a flash in the pan. She's a real deal, and she's going to be making a name for herself. I'm sure of it.
And I know everyone thinks Bravo and even Dromai is a tough matchup, or not Dromai, but if they lean more defensive. But like Nathan's saying, if they lean into more 2 blocks, that's better for the Dash IO. That means those boom grenades are connecting and stuff like that. And our friend Thomas, at the Pro Quest, he beat Ryan Rich on Bravo, so it's definitely a winnable match, especially if you're skilled with the deck. So,
dude, Convection Amplifier has taken my lunch money like one too many times.
What does that card do in that matchup?
Gives overpower.
Yeah,
it
gives your next attack action dominate. Yeah, so they'll put on a big max velocity turn. Right, they're setting it up. No convection, max velocity. You can only block with whatever, and then usually they have a boom grenade there too, so you're taking 13 damage just out of nowhere, right? Something along those lines.
Pretty good.
I think the only thing that's holding Dash back, I'm going to be the contrarian here. You can draw some amazing hands. You can also draw some complete garbage hands.
Absolutely.
And I think most people are now aware of what the deck is trying to do, and the best advice I can give you playing against Dash is that their best hands they don't want to block. Their worst hands cannot block. So you don't really need many cards to disrupt Dash or to get them off their game plan, right? So I do think Dash may struggle a little bit against Azalea, for example, against Bravo. But I do think, Dash does some ridiculous things, and this is probably the aggro deck, the go-to aggro deck alongside Fi. If you want to play the fast food, easy peasy, high power, high octane deck, you play Dash or Fi.
Well,
right?
Dash isn't easy peasy, but yeah.
I think
It's
Dash
a tough deck.
is it?
Yeah.
I think so.
You-
yeah.
You put Toma Fendel into Arsenal and then you play it if you can.
Well, you have
when you
the,
crank an item and
you
then
have
go.
you have the manipulation of the top card to get your items out. There, a lot of things have to come together, and you have to maintain a lot of win cons all at one time because you are boosting everything.
That's true.
You have when you want to crank, when you don't crank, when it's advantageous, when it's not. You need like threat potential and like foresight on like, do you let the boom grenade stay around for 2 turns versus 1 turn because of your like foresight on like the ability to know whether enough damage will connect or not. It's not a Fi deck. I'll put it that way.
Right. Right.
Okay. Fi adjacent, in my opinion.
They are both
Okay.
fast.
Yeah, but they're
They'll
both
both allow
fast,
you
so
to
let's just
eat
put it-
in between rounds.
Mhm.
Dash IO is what Lexi should have been. Very explosive, can do awesome, fun things, but has an inconsistent aspect to it.
and doesn't have on hits.
Oh,
that are
one
that
There's
bad.
like
on
a block
hit.
3 each.
Heist.
That's your inconsistency.
Yeah,
What do you mean? Every attack in their deck has an on hit. It's called grenade trigger.
that's
Yeah,
right.
boom grenade trigger.
That's right.
Fair enough.
But
Okay. Okay, so I guess if we talk about hipster Dash, we should talk about OG Dash.
There's got to be optimal, right? Or
I would
Yeah,
put this
I
at
would
like the
say-
top of optimal for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say the first in optimal.
Okay, so OG Dash traditionally built as a boost deck with a pistol chamber sideboard plan.
Mhm.
I don't think that has changed. I
Nope.
don't think Nitro Mechanoid or the Hanabi Blaster aggro is what people are going to be bringing. So most people are going to be bringing the traditional boost dash deck, 0 to 60s, zipper hits, plus all the really good majestics like Heist, Pulse Wave, Twin Drive, and obviously Max Velocity. The deck got what, two upgrades from the last set? 3 upgrades? Heist, Twin Drive, and am I missing one?
The protocols are actually very
Yeah,
good too.
protocols
Yeah.
are good.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, okay,
protocols,
sure. So the blue protocol and the red protocol, I guess, are what you're referring to mostly.
Because you can
So
use your dash specialization to be able to go get it, crank it immediately, get your action point back, draw a card off of the boost, right? And then just keep going, like extending your turn.
So
Yep.
traditionally, when you use Spark of Genius, you had to break Achilles or you had to use it on a high octane turn.
Right.
So now being able to spark 4 backup protocol is quite huge. So,
Oh, yeah.
you combine all these things together, Dash was already a great deck. Now it's even better. So I guess the question is, why is OG Dash not in the Super Sweaty Tryhard tier?
Because of the weak Dromai and Azalea matchup, in my opinion. I feel like that's why it's an optimal, because you're going to Bravo, and once we put Icelander up in that super sweaty tryhard tier, you have a pretty good matchup into her. Pretty good matchup into the ninjas as well, but I think, Dromai isn't unwinnable, but it's definitely a bad matchup because you can't play how you want to play. You can't go full commit to the boost, full commit to the pistol package. You have to play a weird middle ground that is, you can do it, but it's not as effective as one or the other, because when you're boosting cards, you could just mill 2 items away and then you lose the game on the spot because you can't buff your gun enough. So there's some inconsistency with that. Then against Azalea, you have the D reacts, but they have same thing. If you Nathan was telling me, if you play the D reacts, then you can't boost. It's just it's not good.
I will say that against Azalea, having 9 D reacts doesn't cut it. You need
Yeah.
D reacts and disruption, or D reacts and a snowball. You
Yep.
even if you had 18 D reacts, I don't think it actually cuts it.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to pressure Azalea back,
Yep.
basically.
Some
Yep.
Azaleas are
Absolutely.
playing Dreadboard too. So, I mean,
Mhm.
your D-Rex
Yep.
probably don't even
Yeah.
do anything if they're doing that anyway.
Azalea is a matchup where you basically get the Azalea to go all in on a turn, stuff it with a card from hand, a D react from arsenal, and your armor, and then pivot into aggression and try to maintain tempo there.
Yeah.
If you basically are just defending everything and poking back with your weapon, you're gonna lose badly. Like 20-0 type of loss. Okay. Okay, so that's Dash. Let's talk. We this video's been going for a while, 36 minutes now. Let's talk about some dark horses. Who is worthy of the dark horse position here?
Renar.
Reinhardt.
Right
Yeah.
now.
I was about to say, yeah.
I think
We're
Reinhardt's
Greek
just
out here.
optimal, is he not?
I think people are not talking about him, but people I think this is kind of like PT3 Lexi. People knew, but they didn't say anything. People
Okay,
know,
okay.
and they're not saying anything. The only issue with Reinhardt is that, competitive players don't like variants, but Reinhardt is in a great position to mess people up pretty badly. His worst matchup was literally Lexi. Like, that was a rough matchup, and I think that's the only reason we didn't see him very much in the last meta.
Well, I think he has the opposite of Icelander's problems, where Icelander beats up on Rogue, and I think Reinhardt in this meta, where how we have it structured, just loses to Rogue because the ninjas and the rune blades that are still around can just do damage outputs that he can't block, and he also can't compete with the damage with some of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to put him in optimal or dark horse?
It's tough.
Doesn't he need the good matchup spread, like a good run with the tournament to do well? So wouldn't that be kind of dark horsey?
Yeah.
I mean,
he's a decent pick, but if he sees 2 or 3 ninjas in his run, then it's just or a dash IO combos him. I don't think he can do anything against that really.
Let's put him in optimal for now. Nathan, it sounded like you wanted to say something about Reiner.
I mean, I just think he's really good. We haven't even placed Icelander yet, and he's good into over half of the top decks that we have here. Really good into Dromai, Dash, Bravo. I don't think he's amazing into IO, just because IO is just a really good aggro deck, and then same thing for Azalea. But you could easily throw in Reinforce the Line or something along those lines in Reinhardt, and kind of stuff that really big turn. Lean on those CNCs really heavy. You don't have the disruptions, the problem. So you really just need to get one really good blood rush in, get her life total down, and get her to where she has to block. It's kind of your win con. But when you said dark horse, I was thinking Max.
I was going to say that too.
I can get behind that.
Okay.
That's one where it's not obvious, right? You look at Max and you look at the top heroes, you're who's he good into?
Dromai?
Not good into Azalea. I think he's great into Bravo and Dromai. He's really good into OG Dash. Because
why is he good into OG Dash?
Because the mirror match, the OG mirror match, right? It's basically Prisoner's Dilemma, where it's whoever goes slower typically wins, because you're boosting away cards via aggression, and you just, whoever is the slower typically wins the game, right? We saw that when people ran pistol into Hanabi. Hanabi would never win that. You know, the pistol plan would always work. Well, Max gets to sit back and be defensive and throw like big 2-for-6s basically. And then he just gets to transform, play high octane twin drive, and kill you in one turn.
Yeah.
And you have 0 disruption in your deck to stop that from happening. So he can just sit back and block like he's fatiguing you, get to 2 to 3 hyperdrivers, and then just wait. Just block out until he gets the piece, transform, and then blow you out.
Okay.
And there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you
Can
can do.
you explain to people and to me, that's why I'm asking this question.
Yeah.
What does a max deck look like, and what is it trying to accomplish?
Okay, so a max deck basically is comprised of like some defensive aspects. You're not trying to particularly boost. Your main goal is you have like big Berthas and stuff like that, just crankshafts, just ways to maintain hyperdrivers. Your first 3 turns look something along the lines of, you know, you're always activating Max's ability, you're playing a hyperdriver, recharges, stuff like that, to maintain those hyperdrivers. And then, like I said, once you get to 3 hyperdrivers, you freeze, you never boost. You just, if they swing into you, you block as much damage as possible. If you have cards left over, you throw like a 2-for-6, like Big Bertha or Rev Up, or, you know, all of these cards, right? You just throw those at them, and then you just wait, you transform. Now you have a bunch of armor that you can just use. You block, you do the whole high octane twin drive thing, and you just you deal like 35-40 damage in one turn and you kill him.
Okay, so high octane and twin drive combine very, very well because it gives you a ton of action points to swing your mech like 6
Correct.
times, which will deal
6
36 damage.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
With overpower, right?
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
The only problem is
Sure.
tumble time, right? If you lose one piece of equipment, your whole strategy fizzles, right? So you kind of present the same problem against Stromai, where you can sit back and just, you know, use your poppers because there's a good natural density of them to kind of buy time for the transformation, then present all your damage at one time and really push through.
Okay. I'm going to add a hero to Dark Horse.
Okay.
So we've been talking how Reinhardt is kind of the hero that people are going to be playing. Maybe not, 10% of the meta, but probably at least 5% of the meta at Worlds is going to be Reinhardt. 5 to 10. So Reinhardt is actually very, 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 very bad against my Dark Horse pick. And that pick is Bolton.
Ooh.
Bolton is very, very, very good against Reinhardt. Very, very, very good against Bravo. Fine against both of the mechs, right? Not that great into these two, but, and obviously not good against Icelander. We're probably putting Icelander up here, or here at least. But, there's a bunch of decent matchups there. Does well against most of the top meta. Has a chance at least into them. You can also high roll people a little bit with, chaining together Luminas and stuff like that. I would be referring to a deck that's basically solo Raiden. The more and more, so I've been testing a lot of Bolton shenanigans. They are all nowhere near as good as Raiden. Even the Saber deck, I think, is dead.
Oh wow!
Really?
The Saber deck just you'd only want to play it against Dash and Ninja at this point, and they both have enough. They both have Dash has Pulse Wave, which is annoying. They also have, they might have Armor Destruction depending on their build, and then Katsu and Phi have CNC Breaking Point and Dishonor now, right? So they're like Katsu actually can. Katsu and Phi are both fairly annoying to combo against, actually. So it's like I mean, you can run the combo. It's not very many pieces. It's just like 4 or 5 extra cards. But Raiden Bolton I think is not awful actually. Yeah, especially if you get paired into Bravo or Reinhardt, you're very happy in those 2 matchups. Reason being, they both have to play very similarly against Bolton. They basically have to block until they find the right hand, and they both have like 70% attack actions, so they basically can't block. And
we block like a 5 deck.
Yeah, they basically block like a 5 deck. Yeah. And their damage output is not a 5 deck. So, yeah.
Right.
Okay. But I would say he would probably be a low Dark Horse pick. Let's just put that. I don't think he's there's fundamentally still some issues with Bolton. I do think the best way to build Bolton is to build him with basically it's Cheerios Briar. You're only paying for things with Tunic. That's how I found the most success. Also having Rainbow Bolt of Courage and Red Yellow Snatch I think is also very, very important. Because you want to extend your Via the Vanguard turn. So the best way to play Bolton at the moment, get your Tunic to 3, sit V in the arsenal. Take Tunic, V, double charge, V into Raiden, into whatever you want. End with Bolt or Snatch. Hopefully it hits. And then keep going from there. And that should be like an over 20 damage turn. That's the way I found is best. Okay. Any other thoughts on Bolton?
Not from me.
Okay. Nope. I think he's probably going to see like 1 to 3% meta representation.
Okay.
I do know of a few people that are also testing him, not just me. Okay. Let's add another character to not optimal.
Okay.
Here are your choices here, boys.
Let's just throw. Yeah,
Kano.
Yeah.
All right.
So he could be a dark horse, though.
He could be a dark horse,
right?
No.
All
right. Let's hear your arguments.
You're bad into Dash. You're bad into Dash IO. You're bad into Rhinar. You're bad into Azalea. You're literally a coin flip into Tromai, and you literally execute Bravo for free. Like, congratulations.
So the Bravo helps
so true.
It's right. A lot of those matchups are
like,
bad.
You get one freebie up there in the top 6, but you lose every other one. Like, I don't know what else you want.
Isn't Kano good in the Icelander? I could be crazy.
No,
Not
not at the highest
it's the
level.
other way around.
Okay.
If it's not at the highest level, I would agree with you. But at the highest level, Icelander takes it.
Okay. I guess we'll leave him there. I feel like we didn't quite fully discuss him though. Like, why is he not in Dark Horse, not in trolling PTI categories?
Because it's not a troll. It's a real deck. It does something powerful. You can always high roll any deck in the game with Kano.
No, let's just say how it is. Like, I'll respect you if you bring Kano.
Yeah.
I won't respect you if you bring Tekla Volson.
No.
Okay. That is the so this gets respect. This gets like respect plus I'm intrigued. You have my attention.
Yeah.
And this is you don't have my respect. but I am intrigued as well.
Yeah, exactly. No shade.
You're gonna be watching those games for sure.
Yeah.
If you hear of a Tekla Volson that's 4-3 on day 1, it's because he 3-0'd Bright Lights draft in last round of CC.
And then got paired in somebody else down here, right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's add some more heroes to this category.
Riptide.
Oh boy.
Although, you know what? There's a friend of mine who says that Riptide is a real choice, but I think he's a little bit of a troll, so it kind of works perfectly.
Okay, so he got his bullseye bracers back.
He did.
He sure did.
Yeah.
He can go a little bit wider. He can get you with some more traps. Well, the same amount of traps. But if I sit across from this round one in Barcelona, I'm gonna be thinking, what the heck is this?
You're gonna read every card.
So, Riptide has a bunch of D-Reacts, right? D-Reacts are
Yeah,
decent against these
watch
heroes,
out,
right?
Bravo. Watch out, Bravo.
Sure.
But
He's gonna
look-
flip over Talishar instead of a bow and still have arrows in his deck because he doesn't need to load them.
That's
Yep.
right. Oh wow, that's
You
funny.
can't fire.
You can't
arrows
fire
without
an
never
arrow.
mind, never mind. You're right.
Oh.
That would be cool though.
Look,
Oh,
if
so
you
much
if
I
you
know.
think 30% of the world's field will be Azalea, bring Riptide. But
No.
that is the only reason. Like
No. Still.
all of those decks up there, you lose to, except Azalea.
So the real question is, Nathan, would you have respect for somebody who brought Riptide?
More respect than Tekla Vossen.
That's why he's
But no
on the
respect.
left.
Okay. I didn't know if he was like a
Oh,
dark horse
man.
type of respect, you know?
Almost,
Again, though,
not quite.
if you win with
Almost.
Riptide,
He's almost there.
I'll be very impressed.
He would get Nathan's respect if he day two'd and went 1-2 in draft.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Leviah. This one, I think we're not actually sure where to put her, right?
Yeah, not super sure.
So she didn't
Leave her
have
where you put her first.
she didn't have an amazing PQ season. I think literally she
Lexi.
won
Yeah,
Lexi.
one.
Lexi.
Yeah,
One.
Yeah.
I don't think
But-
it's trolling to bring her. I just don't think. I think not optimal is where she's at.
I agree.
yeah.
A fine choice. I mean, if you really like her, I don't think you're gonna be just cruising though. Probably
Because
gonna be a
she's
little bit tricky.
good into Bravo. She has armor for Azalea. To maybe try to like push a Blood Rush turn, like kind of what you were saying, Josh. She does have some power in her deck. And then I am Nathan. Good draw my matchup, or at least 50-50.
I've lost in thought. A Leviah one time took the one card necessary to banish Blood Debt, and they took 20 and died. So,
Oh wow.
I mean, like, it just, it's
Her
like,
consistency is low.
yeah, you get like a lot of the same stuff as Reinar, right? Like, you get like the explosive turns from Blood Rush Bellow. You get all of these things. You get some better armor in the form of Husk, and like that's all cool and all. But you take on so much risk to get just a minute amount of advantage that may not even actually be advantage. I think the reason that Reinar is so good right now is the intimidate mechanic. There's a lot of decks in the format, like Dash, like, and Leviah doesn't really have the item destruction that that Reinar does. Can she run it? Absolutely. Does she? Is because of the way that she's built and the way her mechanics work, can she afford to run them? That's the more valid question.
So she has a lot of sideboard slots. Because the deck is
Sideboards are
basically
like-
like
Main deck, you don't have many margins where you can change Blood Debt and 6 powers and stuff like that. It's like very, very thin margins of what you can actually change
Sure.
before the deck just falls apart on itself.
I tell you what, if you wanted to play Reinar but you're scared of aggro, play Leviah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Leviah is better into aggro
Yeah.
because the intimidate mechanic's obviously bad against aggro, and Leviah's damage ceiling is higher.
But that's the only reason I can think of.
Yeah.
So
Speaking
if I
of
was
aggro,
if I was gonna play her, I'd probably put her above Kano, but like
Mhm.
I don't think she's horrible.
Sure. Speaking of aggro, we haven't talked much about ninjas, and I feel like a week or two ago, everybody was talking about, oh, ninjas.
Yeah.
Oh, Jeremiah is so screwed. Ninjas.
Yep.
And then Dash came, and we were like,
Screaming onto the scene.
All right, let's talk about Katsu first.
Now could he be optimal?
I think he might be. He might be bottom of optimal. He's got a big damage ceiling. I don't know though. Like at a high level, people know exactly how to block
That's
a
true.
Katsu to be able to, make him a little lackluster. So maybe Fi is just more consistent than Katsu. I don't know. I like Katsu more. He's cool.
So I'm just looking at this top level here, and I'm just like, this all seems like Katsu against Dromai is not the easiest thing in the world anymore, and you can get high rolled by Tomotai. Azalea seems like a complete nightmare unless you're running like unmovable in your deck.
Yeah.
You don't have armor, your D-reacts don't line up correctly. I mean, Katsu against Bravo traditionally has been a fairly even match. Like
Mhm.
ninjas
You like
are
that one?
ninja. Yeah, it's actually maybe even better, good for Katsu because
You have
the
Kodachi.
armor only stops so many breakpoints before eventually you get in, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
But this does seem like a format where like Sink Below Fate Foreseen, like all it takes is having like 6 4-power defense cards that you kind of mess up Katsu's flow, especially if you have some armor. You basically could just deny all the breakpoints for like 7-8 turns. Just doesn't, the offense doesn't feel smooth for Katsu unless he has Razor, I guess, or Ancestral or something like that.
Yeah, that was the kind of thing with Dash and Katsu. It's like when Dash is on the back foot against Katsu, her whole deck blocks 3, minus a card here and there. But when Dash puts the gas on Katsu, that's why he's kind of lacking, because they are 2 blocks and he doesn't block well. Can't regain tempo once it's lost, and then the armor, of course, too. What you were saying.
Great point.
Phi is definitely harder for Bravo, I would say.
Yeah, let's talk about Phi. I think at the moment these two are pretty parity.
Pretty
I think
close.
Phi is a little bit.
close.
I think Phi is probably a bit stronger than Katsu.
Give him a slight edge.
Mainly because you
Yeah.
can high roll.
Yeah.
And the whole,
I don't know.
if you know how to defend against Katsu, you
Also-
know how to defend against Katsu.
Isn't the
Katsu
Emberblade
can high
into
roll, too.
Dromai better than Katsu into Dromai with Kodachi's?
You mean Kodachi with the Phoenix Flame, or
No, I thought a Emberblade into Dromai was the best way to go.
I think it's
From what I've heard.
Kodachi.
I think it's actually
Kodachi?
Kodachi's now. There's been some evolution to that matchup.
Ever since they went to the 9 of Brand of Cinderclaw, you basically get the same output, but in smaller, more breakpoint numbers. And also, there's situations where the Dromai player can just play a Rake, and if you're on the Ember Blade, you don't really have a lot of ones except for your 1 Phoenix Flame, which a lot of times comes in for 2 because of Shuko. So you don't have like a very easy way to clear those Ashwings. Whereas if you have Kodachi's, it's to the point to where Dromai will never even resolve it because it's not worth it.
Yeah.
is there a
mass
situation
triggers.
where you don't even bring in Rake the Embers against the ninjas?
Absolutely. In fact, when we played our match, I don't think I had it in the list. If you think they're add-on Kodachis, you just don't bring it in. It's a 2-block. It doesn't progress the game state, and all it does is basically guarantee that they're going to get their mass trigger. That's literally all it does, which is not a good thing if you're Dromai. So, the way that I look at the ninja situation is if you want to be better into Dromai, and Bravo, I would bring Phi. But if you want to really target Azalea, the reason that Katsu is a lot better into Azalea is if she has an off turn, Katsu has a way better opportunity to kind of capitalize on that and have like a really big turn. Whereas Phi will just say, okay, I'll hit you with 16 damage. Whereas Katsu, if you don't block this, I'm going to kill you. And those are 2 very different dynamics that Azalea can or can't answer, whether she has Tar Pit Trap and stuff like that. But it just depends. Also, Katsu's a little bit better into IO as well, I think.
Sure. Okay. I think we can put them side by side in the kind of bottom of optimal tier. How many heroes we have left? Just 6. We haven't talked about Icelander yet. I feel like we need to.
Sweaty tryhard. Not even close.
Sweaty.
So
I don't think she is.
I think she's the top of optimal.
Okay.
Mainly because of her matchup spread.
Well,
Her
yeah,
power level against down here is quite high. But her power level against up here is not quite there, I think.
I think she has a good Bravo match. And then
Oh yeah,
Oh,
she has an
yeah,
amazing Bravo match, but she has an unfavorable into Azalea. I believe unfavorable into Dromai, unfavorable
And-
into Dash, probably favorable into Io, but unfavorable into Rhinar,
Reinar.
and you beat
And
up the
then
ninja, sure.
You do.
So,
Yep.
so like if you're trying,
50
like-
she's the
50 here.
floodgate of the format. She's
Yeah.
keeping the rogue in check, essentially.
Yeah, she's
Mhm,
keeping
mhm.
everything down here in check. These two heroes here do not want to see Icelander.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. So I think that if you're like the Lucas Oswald or the Majin Bay or you know Dan Rakowski's or Michael Hamilton, if he hasn't played Icelander in a while, but like if you're like one of those players that's been on the hero for a lot and you have like a lot of value associated with the amount of reps you've been on and the situations you've been in before, then I think it's a solid pick. But there's no way I'm picking that deck up in this past like month and a half, even two, and bringing it to this tournament. I don't think there's enough equity to be gained.
I would also like to note that she is close to LL. So if you are not already on the Icelander train or were on the
Yeah.
Icelander train,
Yeah.
you're
yeah,
very
yeah.
unlikely to jump onto the Icelander train. So I think she's actually quite powerful, but she's actually probably the lowest representation out of everything here in the top two, if I had to guess.
That is interesting.
When we get to the end of
Mm.
this tier list, I do want to talk about rough meta representation because I think that is very, very important here. Okay.
I think she's
We got
good. I think she's gonna be
the
awesome.
4 heroes in Dorinthea. Let's talk about some of these heroes. Then we'll
Let's put
close
Arachne
with Dorinthea.
somewhere.
Let's put Arachne somewhere. All right. So
Trolling.
you're aiming
Yeah.
to
Unfortunately.
flip into Dromais that accidentally present Crown of
That's
Dominion,
right. They don't even pay attention to what you're presenting. They're like, yeah, whatever. I'm Dromai.
Oh, you're assassin. Okay, yeah, you're Azuri. Okay, sure. Arachne just
What are you preying upon? Like, what,
oh
why?
boy.
Dromai
So it's
could
a
fight
four-
that match naked and still win. She doesn't even need armor. Like it's that
Yeah.
bad.
And it's like, maybe into aggro, he'll fatigue Fi out. Well, it's like, as long as you don't block his Fi, it's the most free matchup ever. Just keep attacking, never block, don't even arsenal. Just
What if they
go.
codex you?
Cool. That's fine.
You gotta land like multiple eradicates or
Mhm.
something like that to even potentially have a shot against the defensive decks. The aggressive decks are just gonna run you over.
You got some cool new cards, but not enough to make him any better, unfortunately.
He's gonna have his day in the sun someday. Brian Gottlieb said.
He has a ton of fun to play though. Both of the assassins I think are actually pretty fun to play because
Oh, they're very well designed.
yeah, the mechanics of the weapons are actually pretty interesting. I think what assassin really needs is another weapon that's just kind of a general use weapon.
I could see that.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, it's not surprising you like Assassin considering they're very React based.
Let's
That is true.
let's save Dorinthea for last. Should we talk
Yeah, let's save
about Prism?
Let's talk about Prism.
So
So in our last tier list, we said during RTN season that
Mhm.
if somebody had a good Prism deck list, we would see it during RTN season. And did we see it?
No?
No.
Okay, cool.
So
Oh, but I want to put her
Nah.
in Dark Horse.
Now she trolling.
Oh,
Is she
trolling.
trolling? No.
he's,
It's just rake the embers.
Gee.
Like it's
Oh,
as
that's
simple as
right.
that.
You literally lose to Rake the Embers. The
he
single card.
steamrolls. Bravo.
You
See,
beat
that's the
yeah,
person who,
yeah, you beat
Yes.
Bravo.
who's playing in the LL Battle Harden, and they're like, "Oh shit, I guess I can play in Worlds too. I can
Yeah, I don't have to bring
figure
one
out some kind of deck." Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
poor
can just move
Prism.
my Arclight Sentinels to the other deck list.
I mean, you got your bad matchups in like the ninjas and the aggro decks, but like,
And
good lord,
Dromai.
Dromai is just unwinnable. So yeah, why would you play that right now?
You beat 2 decks at optimal or higher, and that's Icelander and Bravo. And every other one just dumpsters you. That is it.
That is a good summary. All right, let's talk about Rosetta Thornless Viscera here.
It ain't it.
Yeah.
I want to say Dark Horse.
Nah, he
No,
trolling.
I would love to.
He
I mean,
trolling.
Viscera against Dromai. All
Okay.
your mobs guys are gonna hit,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, hey,
Okay.
hey.
Spoiler alert. I am packing Viscera for Worlds.
Hmm.
It will
Ooh.
But
be
for
it-
LL format.
Yes, that is correct.
So exact same situation as Prism. You're
But
really
I'm
betting
bringing-
from the battle
Yeah,
hardened.
the only
I think
the
it's a
only
troll
Viscera
too, yeah.
player basically that could be at Worlds is if like they got the Spirit Airline ticket and they're very restricted on space, so they have to like play the same deck for both events. That's the only reason you could have a Viscera player in Worlds, unfortunately.
Excuse me, sir. That Bloodsheath Skeleton, you can't play that till Sunday.
Yeah.
Funny enough, his matchup is like not terrible into Bravo too.
I could see that.
With Rosetta Thorn, I think you just fatigue him,
Mm.
honestly. I hate to say it. He just doesn't have any closing power.
His play pattern is just like Sovereign Skies, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
usually 6 or less. So it's 2 cards, block the Rune Chance, block the Reaping Blade. So it's like it's like the easiest line
And
to
then
block ever.
and then Warmongers, right? Like
Oh yeah,
That-
Warmongers.
that's still a thing.
Yep.
Especially if
If
people are
you
teching
get-
for Azalea, it's just even worse for you.
If somebody plays Arc Knight Ascendancy against you and pummels it,
They
please
deserve
come
to
up
win.
at Worlds and tell
Oh,
me about it.
baby.
They
That
deserve
sounds
to win.
awesome. I hope they do it.
Do it on stream. Do it for the
Yeah.
boys. Round 1.
Vincent
Trolling.
She troll.
trolling.
Vincent's
trolling.
trolling.
Wow,
Yeah.
our Dark Horse tier is so exclusive.
There's so
You
many.
have to be decent against the top tier
Yeah.
and have a reasonable power level.
Poor
So,
I think
Vincent.
that's
I legit think Bravo, OG Dash, and Icelander, and Reinhardt too, could just literally just fatigue Vincent. Like, I'm not attacking you the entire game. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna block everything you have, and I'm just gonna fatigue you. And there's nothing she can do about it. It's just if you have the density of 3 blocks and like 20, a little bit like 20 or above 20 blues, you're chilling. Just block everything.
Yeah,
She'll
I
have
could see
Rune Blade
that.
hands, and then you just throw damage back. Then
Imagine Dash IO, but you have like none of the power, but your items block 3. That's
None of the
Vincent.
power.
That's Vincent. You remove all the power in the burst and stuff, like, and just replace the block value with 3. That's Vincent.
And think about how easy it is to cheat out extra action points. But Vincent, you don't get that.
No.
You
Yeah.
got creepers. Come on.
Oh, creepers, you're right. I forgot
One
about
time.
creepers.
You can do it
maybe.
once. You can do it once.
Maybe 2 or 3.
Well, it is twice because you pay the life. You know, kill yourself more.
That's
Yeah,
No, I
right.
like this though. This is so we finished list. Oh, that's right.
No. You can't tell who's missing.
It's
All
Lexi.
right.
She's the one missing.
It's Lexi. She's
All right.
missing. All right. I have a very, very difficult time placing Dory somewhere. Mainly
Choice is
because
yours.
the current format, in theory, is going to be fairly high in D-reacts. That's bad.
That's a good point.
But this is a format where this is actually the format where Iron Song Pride is probably at its strongest it's been in a long time. Iron Song Pride, great against Icelander, great against Dromai, acceptable against all the other heroes because it's like, okay, you want to give me a sync blow for an Iron Song Pride? Fine. Speeds up the clock against the ninjas. At the end of my stream yesterday, I actually took a poll, and I was originally going to say, should Josh Lau take Dory or Bolton? But I thought that's not nuanced enough. I actually split it into 4. I said, should I take Raiden Bolton, Switch Bolton, Dawnblade Dory, or Dawnblade Decimator Dory. And the reason I separated those two for Dorinthea is this might be a meta where you give up the Great Axe, which means you can put back Ironsong Pride into your deck. Because I think the equity you gain from Ironsong Pride is quite high. So there is an argument to be running a pure Dawnblade list right now. I'm really, really struggling on this. I'd say either high, not optimal, or low optimal, somewhere there.
And Josh, maybe you can vouch for this, but Nathan was talking about it on a stream. How much do you value Dory into a room of good players? Does that change the pick for you at all? Because I know at Worlds last year you also played Bolton, right?
Yeah, Bolton has the ability to Saber Bolton has the ability to say, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you have 3,000 MMR. If I draw the nuts, I draw the nuts and you just die, right? Whereas Dory is very, very, very fair. She doesn't really steal games from people. Yeah, I mean, she does struggle a little bit against, stronger players. But I mean, I feel like I'm just looking at these top 4 heroes. Like Ironsong Pride's good against them. Steelblade Shunt's good against them.
Aren't those two conflicting strategies though?
That's what I'm thinking as well. There's no solidified Dory list. That's kind of the issue. Whereas I look at Bolton, I'm like, play Raiden. Whereas with Dory, it's like, well, you could play with these cute cards and these sideboard cards and these sideboard cards. So I don't know. I think top of not optimal is probably where she belongs. Do you guys have any thoughts on her?
I think that's
I'm really unsure.
That's fair. How do you feel about the Decimator Axe into Bravo, for instance?
So I personally played Decimator into Bravo, Azuri, and Arachne and Riptide. So basically, you have to build you do have to make some deck building concessions. Like you can't go 3 puncture. You have to generally stick with 1 or 2. You're forced to run Glistening Steelblade into matchups you don't want to run it into just because your sideboard slots are constrained. I felt like Decimator against Bravo is decent. Obviously, that's probably the toughest out of against Azuri, Riptide, and Arachne. It's easy peasy. I think it's almost unlosable playing Great Axe against these 3 heroes. Whereas with Bravo,
the attacks are too big.
Really, it depends how many shunts you have in your deck. Oftentimes the Dory deck doesn't run blue shunt anymore because that just creates awkward hands against these aggro decks. So the current issue is that you can't build a unified deck against everything. That's the issue with Dory at the moment. She's so mid-range and jack of all trades that she can't build the jack of all trades deck. You basically have to pick.
There's not a meta to target right now.
And her answers are very specific. Ironsong Pride cannot target Great Axe. Steelblade Shunt is great as an extra defensive card in your blue, but it's awful against aggro decks. It gets you killed. So yeah. And then you throw in the fact that Icelander, it's okay. It's you have to be running a certain amount of blues. These are this kind of is a good transition into another topic here, is that if you look at this top meta here, it's difficult to target everything. The Dromai, Illusionist has always been the left field, you got to have a whole plan for Illusionist. Azalea and Bravo, okay, you could kind of deal with them in the same manner, but you do have to be somewhat aggressive, right? Icelander basically says you got to have enough blues, or so, and then you have these aggro decks here, but they some are just they're all different flavors, right? So there's really no perfect answer here, and I think that's kind of beautiful, right?
Yeah.
I think you just kind of have to go with a deck, and it's not going to be perfect. You got to pray to the gym gods.
Just something that you feel comfortable with and you like the play style of, and whatever you think you pilot best. I think that's the choice right now.
Yep.
You can
Play
make
to
a
the
little
gym
bit of meta call.
gods, have fun, and play to the best of your abilities. I think if
Yep.
you can play a deck optimally at a high level right now, it's going to shine a lot more than metagaming the system perfectly or something.
Unless someone just has a completely unknown deck list, I think that's the only edge right now that you
Yeah,
can get in this format. Not really a known strategy. It would have to be kind of like an unknown strategy to really catch people off guard.
Do,
I want to talk
do
a
we
little
want
bit
to
about
rearrange any of these
Yes.
heroes? Do we? Was that what you were going to say?
Well, we definitely need to do that, and I also want to talk about meta percentages. So I know there's going to be a portion of viewers that are listening, that are watching this with their ears. So I'm going to read out the tier list for you guys. So in the super sweaty tryhard tier, we have Dromai, Azalea, Bravo. Are we okay with the order there?
I think
I'm
so.
good with
fine.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm good with
Okay.
that.
So Dromai, Azalea, Bravo, and super sweaty tryhard. In optimal, we have 6 heroes. We have Icelander, OG Dash, Dash IO, Reinar, Phi, and Katsu.
I think the order's fine, but I think there's still an argument for maybe putting Icelander in the super sweaty tryhard at the end,
I can
because
see that.
she's like one of the pillars,
Yeah.
like the 4 pillars of the meta, right?
Because
No,
she's
so
invalidating a lot of decks from being played, or like for example, Azuri, you can't even consider her because you know Dromai and Icelander's a rough matchup. Like, you just can't take 2 like that. Even
Yeah.
though you could have a good matchup into Azalea and then tech for Bravo to make it winnable, just having 2 like 80-20s in the meta is just, it's just what's holding some heroes back.
yeah, I think that's fair. Having her at the end, maybe even a Bravo. I hate to say that, but so I think she's the most consistent deck in the game right now,
Yeah.
right? Do we agree with that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I would say
they're all bad hand, really.
Droma is probably equally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
those 2, right? You can see kind of a pattern at the top, minus Azalea, is a consistency thing, right?
Yep.
Azalea just does really powerful things. I mean, Kodak's frailty is busted. That's why she's up there.
She's kind of like the old school where like Chain or a Rune Blade used to be, being like it's consistent enough and it's explosive enough where it's worth the consistency issues for the power she's outputting, compared to something like Dash IO, which is, is equally powerful, but like the consistency is lower than Azalea's consistency.
So my thought process for these up top, well, I guess like a couple of weeks ago before we saw Dash IO going crazy, and I started seeing more original Dash being tested, as I thought it was going to be something like Phi, right? Like you guys were talking about, like, oh, Ninja beats the Dromais, right? That's what I was thinking too. So out of these 5 decks, including Ninja, right? Dromai beats Icelander, is 50-50-ish into Azalea and Bravo, and loses to No, right? In general. And then you can apply that same logic to each one of these heroes. Like Icelander is good into Bravo, 50-50 into Azalea and Ninja, but loses to Dromai type thing, right? You just keep going down those lines. So it's almost like a matchup triangle, but with 4...
But she's bad into Azalea and Droma.
She's bad into Azalea as well.
And Dash, yeah.
Is it really that bad into Azalea?
Yeah, just because you can't block it all. And
draw
an
extra card.
Right, but if you time your disruption right, you might be able to.
Yeah, I mean,
arrow, right?
It's kind of like the whole
Icelander
match
can win any game.
Yeah,
it's
like
every turn.
If you don't see CLF, it's kind of like the Briar dynamic, where like some matches you just had to see a channel Mount Heroic.
Sure.
It's kind of like you have to see.
If they land an inertia token, you're really sad.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's
Uh,
true.
and
that's
all-
something I think a lot of we're forgetting about is inertia tokens are really
Yeah,
good.
all of those frailty creators just changed to inertia creators because
Mhm.
Lexi's out of the format now. So like people are cutting lace with frailties in favor of lace with inertia. If they were running withering shot, now it's sedation shot, just because frailty has lost all of its value except of course the codex, because that card's just dumb good. But
Sure.
but as far as the tokens are concerned, it's now where like blood rot pox and inertia are up at the top, and then frailty's just way down. Because the only thing you're doing is stopping Kadachis. That's really it.
It's losing 2 of those. I think it needs to stay in optimal. Yeah, but I thought it was
Stopping Kadachis
closer
and
than
then
that.
Against Dash.io, Frailty's pretty good as well.
Yeah.
I was playing
Yeah,
some
that's
Stowe
true.
into
Dash.io is still shines.
on the
Yeah.
high octane turn when they're shooting you for one shot, 4 shots of 1 instead of 4 shots of 2. It makes a difference there.
But I mean, it's close. It's close. I think you could argue either one and not be wrong.
Okay. Next we have the not optimal tier. There are 4 heroes here. We have Dorinthea, Azuri, Levia, and Kano. I think this is fine.
I like
so too.
Kano
Yeah.
more than Levia, but it's just
You
me.
like what more than you like Kano more than Levia?
Yeah.
I can
Kano's
get behind that.
bad into so many of those decks though.
Yeah.
It's just so bad into all those optimal decks.
I think we're splitting hairs either way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're close enough. Yeah,
Uh,
you're right.
Okay. In our dark horse tier, we have 2 decks.
I love our
Max
dark
and
horse too.
Bolton.
Yep.
I think it's perfect.
I like how there's 2 heroes here. There's not like a huge dark. There's not a lot. There's
Mhm.
just 2.
Those are
Don't be
heroes that can
surprised
do
if you
it,
play
but
against a Max.
yeah.
Don't be
I think-
surprised if you play against a Bolton.
They both got potential. Let's see it.
They have potential for different reasons. Max has a fundamentally stronger base strategy, but
Mhm.
Bolton has some great matchups in the top 2 tiers.
Yeah.
Okay. And then finally, in the you bought a PTI to troll people round 1, we got 6 heroes. Viscerai, Prism Awakener of Soul, Vincent, Arachne, Riptide, and Teklovossen.
So many new heroes.
Yeah.
So many.
One
new
day
heroes.
you guys will
poor
be good.
Viscerai. Poor
Yeah, poor
Viscerai.
Viscerai.
Viscerai just
Yeah,
needs support. That's what he needs. Not OTK
He needs Rosetta
support,
Thorn
but
back.
Yeah.
well, or just some support cards to his mid range strategy.
He's gotten 2 specialization cards, and if you look at the bequest, the something, and then the Sonata, what we call it, the Fanta, yeah, the Fanta. If you look at the art, it's like him and 3 people traveling somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know where they're going, but Viscerai needs to hurry the fuck up because he needs to get to where he's going because it's just not it right now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all 21 heroes here. Before we wrap this up, I want to talk very briefly about metagame percentages. So, I think it's fair to say that Dromai, Azalea, and Bravo will be probably 12% plus, maybe even 15% plus.
Yep.
Mainly because Worlds is a consolidation, and Illusionist and Guardian players have a whole legacy of enjoying their class, so it's just carrying on. And then Azalea is the Lexi refugees, right? Or the Aggro refugees. So I think it's fairly likely we see 15.
I agree.
Any arguments there? Okay. For Icelander, I think we're gonna see, like I said at the beginning, I think this is one of the most powerful heroes that we're not gonna see a lot of. So I'd say about 5% for Icelander. So that actually gives us 50% there. And then I think among these heroes here, this is just another, 5-6%. So this is going to be putting us basically at 80% among these 2 tiers. And then this will be the other 20%.
Yep.
roughly
agree with
correct.
that.
And I guess so. Roughly, the power correlates to the meta share, other than Icelander. Okay, so do not be surprised if you sit down against any of these 3, 6, 9, 11 heroes. Anything in Super Sweaty Tryhard, Optimal, or Dark Horse, do not be surprised if you see them. All right. Is there anything else we need to talk about?
Got to practice your Bravo mirrors.
Gotta practice your Bravo mirrors. Ah,
Man, there's
okay.
a really nice channel that has a lot of Bravo mirrors on there. I don't know.
I heard we have
I
a lot
want
of
to go.
Guardian mains
I
now.
want to go
Guardian
check
main.
that out. I already converted most of the team into Guardian mains, including Josh Lau. He's playing Bravo at Worlds.
I'm playing
guarantee he's
Decimator
not.
Great Axe Dorinthea, which is
I just
basically
can't believe
Bravo.
That's
Nathan's
Exactly.
going all the way to Barcelona to roll dice with Reinar. It's pretty crazy to me.
crazy. You know,
I would
watch out for
like
Nathan.
if somebody would give me a list, I'd be down.
This is our psyops section now, guys.
Right. I can't believe I
okay.
learned Kano just to go all the way to Barcelona.
Yep, and flip I have Ophidia with your hero ability, right?
That's right.
All right. Enough with that. Let's wrap this up and let's get out of here. Will, why don't you wrap us up?
I was gonna
Or is there
say,
something
in all seriousness, I think this is a very exciting time in Flesh and Blood. I think a lot of the decks are viable, are could maybe surprise, and there's very good, steady, and at the ready decks too, in the form of Dromai and Bravo. So good luck to everybody. Let's have a good championship, and hopefully the winner
Nathan,
is a worthy
Will
player.
and myself will be going to Barcelona.
Sure.
So if you see us there, say hi. We're friendly. Yeah, if you are a fan of Dorinthea or Warrior, come up and say hi to me. I will give you a cutie Dory sleeve. Okay, yeah, Will, wrap us up and let's get out of here.
Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been a video from TheCardGuyz. We appreciate you coming on over. Leave us a comment if you have any qualms with our opinions, or if you just want to say something that you're passionate about. Until next time, thanks so much for watching. Peace
Remember
out.
your pummel triggers.
Yep.
I can't forget that.
Take care.